Your body's been rehearsing through imagery your whole life. You were just never told. In a 2004 study at the Cleveland Clinic, participants who had only mentally imagined contracting a finger muscle, never actually moving it, increased their finger strength by 35% over 12 weeks. No physical training. The brain signal alone produced real measurable changes in the body. And in fertility, the research goes a step further. Women undergoing IVF who used clinical hypnosis during their embryo transfer had double the pregnancy rate of women who didn't. Visualization isn't a manifestation trick. It's a nervous system tool, and there is a specific way to use it that changes how the body responds. Hi, I'm Michelle Orovitz, a fertility acupuncturist and host of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I want to start by being honest about why this topic gets such a mixed reaction from women on the fertility journey. Visualization in most of the wellness world has been wrapped up in a language that turns a lot of women off, especially women who are deep in trying to conceive and have heard 1,000 times that they should think positive thoughts, manifest their baby, get out of their own way. That language could be very exhausting, and it places the responsibility of an enormous, complex biological event on a woman's mental discipline, which is unfair and frankly inaccurate. And it conveniently ignores the fact that visualization, when you actually look at the science, has very little to do with the universe and very much to do with the nervous system. So I want to reset this conversation today, not because I want to take the magic out of it, because you know I love spirituality. The magic is real. I just want to ground it because once you understand what is really happening in the body, when you visualize, you can stop trying to do it correctly enough to deserve a baby, which is a horrible position to be put in, and start using it as a tool that meets your body where it is. There's also a specific way of doing this that the research is very clear about, and we'll get to that toward the end of the episode. It changes the physiological response significantly, and I want to name something else early. Visualization isn't separate from the rest of the work you're doing on your fertility. It's part of the same conversation. When your nervous system is regulated, your hormones have an easier time finding their rhythm. When your heart is settled, your uterus has an easier time receiving. When your inner state shifts, your body shifts with it. Visualization is one of the ways we work with that connection directly, not a standalone technique, a way of speaking to the body's language and intelligence. Let me start with one of the most striking studies in this area because it might shift how a lot of people think about what imagination is. In 2004, a research team led by Vinith Ranganathan at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation published a study in the journal Neuropsychologia. They divided participants into 3 groups. One group did physical training of the small muscle that abducts the 5th finger. One group did mental training only, vividly imagining contracting that finger as forcefully as they could, but never actually moving it. And one group did nothing. After 12 weeks, the physical training group had increased their finger strength by 53%. The mental training group had increased their finger strength by 35%. The control group, no change. And when they looked at the brain signal, the cortical signal driving the muscle was significantly stronger in the mental training group, even without movement. Let that sit for a moment. Vividly imagining a movement strengthens the neural pathway driving that movement. The body adapts, real physical change occurs without actually performing the action. And this isn't an isolated finding. There's a whole field of research on motor imagery now, with brain scan studies showing that imagining a movement activates many of the same regions as actually performing the movement. The premotor cortex, the supplementary motor area, the cerebellum, the parietal regions, the overlap is extensive enough that researchers describe imagery and execution as functionally similar in many ways. Now, I know finger strength isn't the same as fertility, but the principle is enormous. The brain barely distinguishes between vividly imagining and doing, and whatever the brain rehearses, the body adapts to. Now, let's go specifically into fertility research because this is where it gets really interesting. There's a 2006 study by Professor Eliyahu Levitas and his team at Soroka Medical Center in Israel, published in Fertility and Sterility, that I find genuinely remarkable. They studied 185 women undergoing IVF. Half received clinical hypnosis, which is a focused state of guided relaxation and imagery during their embryo transfer. The other half had the standard procedure. The results: the women who received hypnosis during their transfer had a clinical pregnancy of 53%. The control group, 30%. The implantation rate doubled from 14% to 28%. That isn't a small effect. That is one of the most powerful psychological intervention findings in the entire fertility literature. So the question becomes, what is the mechanism? Why would a state of focused inner imagery during embryo transfer change implantation that significantly? And here's where the research connects all the way down to the uterus itself. There's a series of studies starting with a 1998 paper finding by Fanchin and colleagues in Human Reproduction showing that uterine contraction frequency at the time of embryo transfer is inversely correlated with pregnancy outcome. In their data, women with low contraction frequency had a clinical rate of 53%. Women with high contraction frequency had a pregnancy rate of 14%. The hypothesis is straightforward that fertility contractions can displace the embryo and disrupt the moment of contact with the uterine lining. Stress, sympathetic activation, and high cortisol all influence smooth, on the other hand, downregulate sympathetic tone and quiet the smooth muscle, which is most likely the bridge between Levitas's hypnosis intervention and the doubled pregnancy rate. The imagery didn't place the baby, it placed the body in a state where the uterus could receive. And this is the through line I want you to hold. Imagery shifts state. State shifts physiology. Physiology shifts outcome. Each step is measurable. You're not bypassing your body, you're working with it through a doorway most people don't realize is open. There's also a 2011 randomized control trial by Dr. Alice Domar and her team at Boston IVF published in Fertility and Sterility looking at structured mind-body program including relaxation, cognitive restructuring, and visualization with women going through IVF. In the second IVF cycle, women in the mind-body group had significantly higher rates of pregnancy than women in the control group. Different study, different intervention, same direction. The mind state is doing work that the body recognizes. Chinese medicine has been describing this for centuries, just in a different language. In TCM, the heart houses the shen, or the spirit or consciousness, and the heart connects directly to the uterus through a specific channel called the Bao Mai. I often talk about this because it's one of my favorite subjects. The Bao Mai is the bridge that carries the influence of the heart and mind down into the reproductive system. When the shen is settled, the Bao Mai is open, qi and blood flow freely down through the womb, and the uterus is in what we call a receptive state. When the shen is agitated, the Bao Mai constricts, qi and blood movement gets restricted, and the uterus loses its ability to receive. So when an acupuncturist treats a woman struggling to conceive, especially one who has been through cycles of disappointment, we are not only treating the uterus, we're very often treating the heart, the shen, and the relationship between the upper body and the lower body, because that relationship can determine whether the womb can become receptive. Visualization, when it's done from a quiet, steady state, calms the heart, it settles the shen, and it opens the Bao Mai, and the uterus follows. This is why visualization done from a forced or panicked state often falls flat. If you're gripping the image, demanding it, or performing it, your sympathetic nervous system is still in charge. The heart is still racing. The shen is still scattered. The image is technically there, but the body is not in a state to receive anything. So yin, which is the state of parasympathetic, is a little more receptive and needs stillness. The image has to be allowed and not forced. There is a beautiful Taoist principle here, Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-forcing. It isn't the absence of action, it's action without strain. So the body knows how to receive. Our job is to stop interrupting it. And I want to add something I see often in the clinic. The women who tend to get the most out of visualization aren't the ones doing it the most intensely. They're the ones who have softened their relationship to it, the ones who have stopped using it as a test of how good their belief is and started using it in a way that really eases and calms their mind and their spirit, and realize that it is a conversation. A conversation only happens when both sides are calm enough to hear each other. Now, I want to share something the research is very clear on, but that doesn't get talked about much in the fertility world. There are two kinds of visualizations, and they are equally effective in the body. The first is called external imagery. This is when you visualize yourself from the outside, like you're watching yourself in a movie, seeing yourself holding the baby, seeing yourself with a positive test in your hand, watching a version of you living in the future you want. The second is called internal imagery, also called kinesthetic imagery. This is when you imagine the experience from inside your own body, not seeing yourself, but feeling what you would feel. The warm sensation, the fullness, the breath, the internal bodily experience of whatever you are picturing. Internal imagery produces significantly stronger physiological effects than external imagery. Heart rate shifts more, blood pressure shifts more, brain activation is stronger, muscle activation is stronger. The body responds because the body is being rehearsed from the inside, not viewed from the outside. Now, this matters for the fertility journey because almost all of the visualization scripts you find online are external. See yourself with the baby, picture the positive test, watch yourself in the future. None of that is wrong. It just isn't where the deeper physiological change is happening. The internal version sounds like this. Feel the warmth in your lower belly. Notice the softness in your uterus. Feel the breath dropping into your hips. Sense your ovaries quiet and held. Feel the receptive state from the inside of the body, not as a picture, but as a felt sense. That's where the research lives. That's where the body is actually being rehearsed. So how do we do this practically? First, drop the picture, or at least try not to lead with it. Lead with a felt sense. So if you want to picture a baby, that's fine. Let the picture come as the body has settled, not before. The state matters more than the script. Second, keep it short. 2 to 5 minutes a day, done daily, will do more than 30 minutes done sporadically. The nervous system learns through repetition, not intensity. Third, do it from a regulated state. 3 slow exhales, longer than your inhales before you start. A hand on your heart or your lower belly. A reminder that you are safe in this moment, and remember that the state determines whether the imagery lands at all. Fourth, let go of grading it. The way you know the visualization is working is not whether you got pregnant this cycle. It's whether your body feels calmer afterwards, warmer, less braced. That's the rehearsal taking hold. Conception is downstream of weeks and months of that state, not one single visualization. And one more thing. Don't try to force a specific feeling. If your body is having a hard day, don't pretend to feel calm and warm when you don't. The body knows the difference. A more honest entry point might sound like, my body is tired right now, and I'm giving it a few minutes of quiet. That sentence alone, when it's true, shifts the nervous system more than any rehearsed script of joy. Your body knows the truth, and it knows when you're trying to trick it. And I'll also say, if visualization has ever felt like one more thing on a long list of fertility tasks, you have permission to take the pressure off it. This isn't about doing it perfectly. The body's not asking for a perfect 5-minute meditation. The body is asking for a few honest moments of softening. Some days that's a full visualization, and some days it's 3 exhales while you're sitting in your car before you walk into the office. Both count. The nervous system doesn't grade on length. I want to leave you with something I think about often. The research finding that moves me most in this whole field isn't the finger study or the IVF study, although those are remarkable. It's the underlying truth that the body has been listening to the mind all along in ways we're only beginning to measure, and that you sitting in your living room with no special equipment and no perfect technique can give your body the same quality of input that women in the hypnosis study were given. This isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it gently from a place of quiet rather than demand. 5 minutes a day in a felt sense with no grading attached will give your body more of what it needs than the most elaborate scripted meditation done in a state of urgency. And here's what I want you to take with you. Your imagination has always been a doorway between your nervous system and your body. You don't have to believe anything new. You don't have to perform anything. You just have to open the door a little, often with kindness toward whatever you find on the other side. Your body is already practicing. We're just learning how to give it a better material to practice with. Thank you for being here today. Because this episode is all about the power of visualization and the nervous system, I want to share something I created specifically for this kind of work. It's called Rooted, my fertility mindset membership, and it's a library of guided hypnosis audios designed to support fertility at every stage of the journey, whether you're trying naturally, preparing for IUI or IVF, or somewhere in between. The audios are built around the exact kind of internal felt sense imagery we just talked about, so your nervous system gets the real input it responds to. The first 7 days are completely free, so you can settle in and try the audios without any pressure. You can find it at michelleorovitz.com/rooted-fertility-mindset-membership. The link is also in the description and show notes. If this episode landed for you, the kindest thing you can do is share it with a friend who has been going through the same journey as you and needs a little reminder to know that her mind is super powerful and she has an ability to use her visualization in an incredibly powerful way to support her journey. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.